What opportunities does globalisation present for newly promoted football clubs in the Premier League?
The opportunities that globalisation can offer for newly promoted football clubs when they enter the Premier League is huge. It helps expand and enlarge their markets further for their brand with associated products as you start seeing fans in Africa, China, or wherever you go wearing Man United shirts, for example. And technology has helped with that process. And with technology, improved communications, new opportunities arise all the time. It allows clubs to sell anything that the customers could be interested in that is related to that football club and its values. When promoted, there is an enormous leap in the Premier League and Championship because everything changes for a club like Burnley or Hull City. But it varies with each Premier League club, and newly promoted clubs, as different clubs have different brand values due to the size of the football club and its global reach. The strength of media is massive and is vital to penetrate personal relations with customers to get interested into the football club and hopefully convert them into fans. It leads clubs to be exposed to the power of the media as fans can see everything that the club does, which allows football clubs to sell as well with the pre-existing businesses and create new agreements with businesses and brands. It gives newly promoted football clubs some leverage in the global world, and it is a very two-way stream for football clubs as they give other business exposure as well for them to expose them to huge markets. Premier League is a huge wake-up call that the newly promoted football clubs have to grab with both hands as it offers great opportunities to expand further, especially with the new TV deal that has helped yo-yo clubs financially go close to close the gap with the top clubs in the Premier League, which has allowed players with a huge following to go to football clubs that you would never expect before, such as Benteke going to Crystal Palace and Valdez going to Middlesbrough.
Okay. What are the potential problems arising from globalisation for newly promoted football clubs in the Premier League?
Opportunities that the Premier League with globalisation brings largely outweighs the problems created, which are put on a newly promoted football club. One of them is that these football clubs can get too overexcited when entering the Premier League and they forget all about the financial obligations that could come back to haunt them if they don't survive in the Premier League, as the amount of money that they get from a championship from the Premier League has a huge gap, as there is a less money in the championship, causing the football clubs to bring in the need of parachute payments. However, this normally occurs when there is mismanagement from a board and the people in the charge of the newly promoted football clubs, which are too interested in the short-term money, huge change, than the substantiability of the football club that got promoted. Their ambitions can be carried away because they forget that there are only small teams in the table of huge football clubs that know what it takes to survive and have been doing successfully for a few years at least. Like Stoke City, for example, they still realise their ambitions and that is why they have stayed up for as long as they have. But until there is mismanagement and they forget the reality, problems will be created for a football club. Newly promoted football clubs need to buy players, but they need to balance it with the finances because players' wages is a huge difference from the Championship, which is double the amount a Championship player gets. They need to concentrate on the club's own image, rights and control these players' wages and what brings the amount of money for a newly promoted football club that is reasonable and what heavily affects them. Dempsey, during his time at Fulham, brought a lot of USA media attention on Fulham Football Club as it gave them a lot of media coverage as he was a main player for the USA national team, but also was a terrific midfielder for an average football club that often finished in the top 10 around 2010. This helped globalise Fulham to a large audience that allowed Fulham to exploit a further market to convert them into fans and potential customers of the brand. These players that bring a huge following to a football club are considered as media commodities, but they can be expensive. Newly promoted football clubs have to not believe the hype as when they forget results aren't achieved and bigger problems arise because the football club wasn't concentrating. When players start believing the hype, clubs need to sell their players and improve themselves, but also keep a balance with the money coming out on players of their wages only. Football clubs need to sometimes re-image themselves and provide value to their fans. A lot of money, when being put into a football club, needs to be spent wisely to exploit the market, but these costs are really high. This is why newly promoted football clubs often need to re-evaluate what they are and the realities of trying to survive in the Premier League competitively and financially.
Okay. What are the financial implications of globalisation on newly promoted football clubs in the Premier League?
There isn't really any financial implications on football clubs in the Premier League because it tries to offer clubs of different sizes to keep a competitive balance to make it more entertaining for fans. However, there is a huge gap still between the big clubs and the small clubs, but it has slowly decreased since the new Premier League deal, as you see huge big name players at football clubs that you never thought would be signed for them a few years back. The Premier League itself is a huge media global commodity that brings a lot of worldwide attention due to the improvement and development of technology and communication over the past few decades. Wherever you go, you can still see a Premier League football game that can help smaller clubs get attention from new customers. It can cause international business to try and set agreements with the newly promoted clubs, which helps them financially compete with the bigger clubs. The Premier League brings in a high level of income, but clubs need to commodify it with their social responsibilities as a football club to follow sports rights. As overspending goes against rules and regulations of the Premier League, but can also cause internal financial problems at the football club, which could see them relegated. But even going to further decline as the newly promoted football clubs have mismanaged their business financially. Some clubs repeat this as they blow all their money away on the new and better players to improve the squad, but they aren't getting the benefits for long-term sustainability. This is why football clubs need to be careful with spending and recognise their situation. A promoted club that has done this well this season is Burnley, because they have been well managed and have been careful with their financial situation, which has been based around their financial situation at the football club. Whilst other two promoted teams have overspent on expensive foreign players that are huge media commodities, for example Valdez to Middlesbrough, the key to managing a football club financially is to behave responsibly with the huge amounts of money that is coming into football club by being in the Premier League, and build slowly by long-term planning. The football club's rise to hopefully compete with the best and always be considered a Premier League club and not a yo-yo club.
How can newly promoted football clubs such as Burnley, Middlesbrough and Hull become attractive to foreign spectators worldwide?
Well, football tourism has become a huge popular trend and is a relatively new segment in the last decade, as you get people all over the world coming to visit their favourite football club for the first time due to communication, technology and transport services being improved all over the world, as a lot of countries never had this amount of access before, especially with the BRICSs such as China, who have come to visit stadiums and Premier League teams across England, because the Premier League brand is huge over there and there is a lot of interest. Premier League teams have started to realise the potential of football tourism that it could create for newly promoted football clubs such as Middlesbrough as a new source of revenue to compete with their competitors. For example, football clubs have started selling seats to international businesses and travel companies for extra revenue and potential agreements to grow the football club's target audience and reach further global audiences. The Premier League needs to identify the values that makes the brand so attractive to foreign spectators to create that excitement for them. As a sport is not such just a competitive match, but also an entertainment to these fans that travel from overseas to watch their favourite football team. The values that the newly promoted football clubs create needs to be suitable to put these real message of the football club across their fans. Fans, especially foreign spectators, put interest into a football club or start following them because they can identify themselves with a football club, which makes each Premier League club unique, and they must use it to exploit these fans. Image is vital for these football clubs, and it needs to appeal to the target market that the football club in the Premier League aims to penetrate. Otherwise, they will be lost and may be attracted by their competitors in the Premier League, making them miss out on sales but a larger fan base expansion internationally. Normally, to foreign spectators, they like success and entertainment, which is why you usually see them being attracted to bigger clubs in the Premier League, such as Arsenal, Man United, Manchester City, Chelsea and Liverpool, because they are huge media commodities that have been founded upon or have had recent success and trophies. Fans like these clubs because they want to be associated with them and are happy to be seen with that football team's kit and merchandise. If newly promoted football clubs want to compete with that carefully and successfully, they need to find ways to enhance their popularity on a global scale. Either it be the new Premier League deal with them being broadcasted all around the world, or agreements with international businesses to widen their global reach and to enter various international markets to create potential customers for the football club. Big signings can really help a football club, as there are huge media commodities that bring a huge following and fan base, but this is only short term and it depends on the brand value of the football club. These players can often be over expensive and can bring financial problems to newly promoted football clubs. Overall, they need to identify the market, which will have the highest possibility of becoming consumers of that Premier League brand, and that their image represents the real message of the football club that will bring the right audience to support that football club. Image is vital for attracting fans, and these newly promoted football clubs need to keep their brands respected.
Okay. Question 5. Is it possible for newly promoted football clubs to close the gap between them against